Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Brooklyn. If you're new here, I'm so glad you clicked on today's video. I have an exciting video for you guys today. October is officially over, which is insane, but today we are going to go through the 17 books that I read during the month of October. October was a good reading month for me. I did go through my first ever reading slump, which was not very fun, but we did get over it, thank goodness. Once I got over that reading slump, the rest of the month was great. I did read a good mix of physical books and audiobooks as well. I'm going to go through every single book I read this month and give you a quick summary synopsis of the book as well as a mini review. To make it easy, I'm just going to go through the books in the order that I read them. If you do like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future video. I also have been loving posting on my book dedicated Instagram account. I'll put a screenshot of it here as well as link it below. I'll also link my TikTok in the description. I'm pretty active on there as well. So if you're wanting to see any of my daily reads, feel free to check me out on those accounts. The first two books I read this month are Crown of Midnight and The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. Bear with me if you don't know too much about the Throne of Glass series because this might be a little bit confusing, but technically Assassin's Blade is book number 1 and Crown of Midnight is book number 3 in the series. Assassin's Blade is technically a prequel book and book number 1. However, some people say to read it first and some people say to read it third. I basically went with the first thing that I saw on TikTok, which was someone saying you should read it third, so that is what I did. The order I read it in was Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and then Assassin's Blade. However, I highly regret doing that, and if you're gonna read the Throne of Glass series, definitely start with Assassin's Blade. Assassin's Blade is basically a book full of novellas, but it follows our main character and kind of gives you more of her backstory. If you decide, like me, to read this third, you will already know the ending of this book, and it is not a good ending. It's a really sad ending. So while I was listening to this, I was like, okay, I already know what's gonna happen. Why do I want to listen to that? It just made me not want to pick it up. It is an incredible book, great writing, great stories, but it just put me in that slump because I just didn't want to pick it up. Because I already knew what was going to happen, but obviously if you read this first, you don't know what's going to happen, and I highly recommend you go in blind, and then I don't think you'd have the same problem that I had. I gave this 3.5 stars just because really my experience reading it, like I said, great writing, great story, but please read it first. I also listened to this on audio, but I just have the physical book now, so I'm just going to hold it for the video, but I also listened to Crown of Midnight on audio, and I don't have the physical book with me. Like I said, Crown of Midnight is technically the third book, but I read it second, and I absolutely loved it. Crown of Midnight and Throne of Glass are really just a ton of world building, which honestly scared me a little bit because I'm not a big fantasy reader, so I wasn't sure if I'd be able to follow it. And even though it is a ton of information, it was perfectly executed and I was never confused. Super easy to follow, loved her writing style, and the story was also obviously just very good. I was not expecting the ending at all, and I was pleasantly surprised. My jaw was literally on the floor the whole entire time, and I just really enjoyed it. Again, I also listened to this one on audio, and I do highly recommend the audio. I think I'm just a quicker reader when I have it physically in front of me and I'm not listening to it, so I'm gonna read the rest of the series physically, but I did really enjoy the audio if you like audiobooks. I literally had to run downstairs and get a drink because I know I'm just gonna yap and yap and yap this whole video, and I'm only 2 books in. The next book I read in October was Tourist Season by Brynne Weaver. This is Brynne Weaver's newest release. It came out on September 23rd. This book follows Harper and Nolan, and Harper lives in a small coastal town called Cape Carnage, and she kind of sees herself as the protector of the town. Since this is a Brynne Weaver book, this obviously means she is a serial killer and she targets rude tourists. And then we have our male main character, Nolan. Nolan shows up to the small town with one goal in mind, and that goal is to kill Harper. He's targeting Harper because he thinks she was involved in a hit-and-run accident a few years ago that killed his brother and almost killed him. And obviously, of course, he's also a serial killer who has already killed the other people involved in the accident, but Harper is kind of his main big target. When a journalist comes to town and starts poking around asking questions because there are a lot of tourists that go missing in this town, Harper and Nolan decide to call it a truce so he doesn't get any closer to either of their secrets. They also start spending tons of time together, which obviously blossoms into a lot more. I will warn you that this book ends in a crazy cliffhanger. The last chapter is insane, and then you go to the epilogue and it's literally even crazier. I gave this one 5 stars. If you didn't know already, I love Brynne Weaver. I think she writes the funnest, most unhinged, crazy romance stories, but they are a hoot. You're never bored. It's fast paced, always has you on your toes, and it's just a really good time. I also really enjoyed both of the main characters, which usually I either like one or the other, or like kind of like one but really like the other. This one I really liked both of them. Next we have Him by Serena Bowen and Elle Kennedy. This is a friends to lovers MM romance, and I did listen to it on audio, which if you like audiobooks, I highly recommend it because the narrators are Teddy Hamilton and Jacob Morgan. I honestly think that that was the deciding factor in me buying this audiobook. I saw those narrators and I was like, yep, add to cart. Our main characters are Jamie and Ryan, but Ryan actually goes by the nickname Wes throughout the whole book. They are both hockey players who actually met at summer hockey camp when they were kids, and they immediately became best friends. After a bet and a night of taking it a little too far when they were 18, Wes actually completely ghosts Jamie and they don't talk for 4 years. Wes thinks he took advantage of his seemingly straight friend, but Jamie is just truly hurt that Wes ghosted him. 4 years pass and they find themselves having to compete against each other's hockey teams, and they finally reunite. Wes is excited he finally gets his chance to apologize to Jamie face to face, but when he sees Jamie, all of his old feelings resurface. Then they both end up at that same hockey summer camp, but this time they're coaching. And they find themselves rooming together just like they did when they were kids. We do get a lot more of Jamie's story in this book just because he is the one having to come to terms with his sexuality and his feelings towards Wes and everything like that. Wes is openly gay and he's not ashamed of it or anything, but he does just keep it private and to himself because he has hopes of going on to the NHL. Their relationship is so sweet, and I'm usually not a big friends to lovers trope fan, but for MM romances, it's like the best trope out there. I originally gave this book 3.5 stars because I did enjoy it. I just didn't think it was anything too special. But since then, I have upped my rating to 4 stars because I genuinely think about these two like every single day. The next book I read is another audiobook, and it is Nocticadia by Carrie Lake. This book was my favorite book I read all month. This is a dark academia student professor romance read with a little bit of horror mixed in there. Our female main character is Lilia, and she is offered a full ride scholarship to a very eerie, creepy university called Dracadia. After her mom's mysterious death, she's actually trying to figure out what killed her mom, and she knows the best way to do this is by going to the university. Then we meet Deverick, who has a whole past of his own, but he is her best chance at figuring out what killed her mother. He also is her professor. I don't know what it was about this book, but the way I was instantly hooked by like chapter 1, I was in it. This was an easy 6-star read for me. The tension between these two was incredible. They were literally driving me insane while I was reading it, and I was eating it up. The plot twist at the end was also great, and I was not expecting it at all. This is also a perfect fall read because of the dark academia spooky aspect. So if you haven't read it, I highly recommend trying to read it before winter. I will warn you that they do talk a lot about parasites. That's like a big thing in the plot. So it's a bit gory, so if you don't love that, you might not like this book as much as I did. Again, I listened to this one on audio and I really liked it, so if you like audiobooks, I highly recommend you listen to it. It was great even if it was like 70 chapters. Next are 2 more audiobooks. I was obviously on an audiobook kick at the beginning of the month. It is Crossroads and Sunlight by Devney Perry. These are the 2 and only books in the Haven River Ranch series. Crossroads is the first book in the series, and it is your classic small town second chance romance. Our female main character, India, returns to the Montana ranch where she actually spent her childhood summers with our male main character, West. They were kind of like childhood teenage lovers as well. They never really dated, but they always had that connection. Then they both went off and got engaged and married, so it obviously fell off and they stopped talking. However, she is back because West's dad actually sold her their family ranch because he was broke. West is not too happy about this, obviously, because it is his family's ranch and he doesn't want to just give it to her, but they have to work together in order to get the ranch back up and running and have people wanting to visit and spend money there again. There is a lot of tension and family drama, and Devney Perry just writes like perfectly executed emotional depth with like all the characters, the places, like everything. You just feel like you're in the book. I gave this book 3.5 stars because it was a great book, but I didn't think it was anything like too special. Then we have Sunlight, which is the second book in the series, and it follows West's brother, Jax. Tropes in this book include accidental pregnancy, workplace romance, and forced proximity. Our female main character, Sasha, actually moves to Montana in hopes of a fresh start, and she immediately bumps into Jax, but then she soon realizes that he is her boss. She tries to ignore their chemistry and attraction toward each other, and she does a very good job at this for a long time, but then they have a night together at a holiday work party and she falls pregnant. I can't say too much more without giving anything away, but the rest of the story, we're basically watching them navigate this news as well as their relationship. I did give this book 4 stars. I thought it was such a wholesome read. Jax was a perfect MMC. I absolutely love him, and I'm not a huge fan of the accidental pregnancy trope, but this one was great. I also listened to the last few chapters of this at work, and I had to stop the book and like stop listening to it because I was was gonna start crying. Now we've made it to about the middle of the month, and as you can tell, I was listening to a lot of audiobooks because I never wanted to read a physical book. So I was pretty much in my slump at this point, and I really wanted to get out of it. So in hopes of getting out of my slump and getting in the spooky season spirit, I did 7 spooky reads in 7 days. I did do a full vlog style video following these 7 days as well. So if you want a more in-depth review of some of these books, go check out that video. I am gonna try and make these a little bit quicker just to get through the video because we obviously have a lot of books to get through. The first book I read during this challenge was Bunny by Mona Awad. This book follows Samantha, who is in a creative writing program at a university. She basically gets sucked into this creepy, like cliquey group of girls who call each other Bunny. It starts off kind of funny and like offbeat, and it soon gets super dark and unhinged and just really weird. She basically gets sucked into like these strange rituals, and it's just freaking weird and just really bonkers, and I don't even really know how to describe it. It's a true horror book for sure. It's also super gory, so just saying that in case you don't like it, I probably wouldn't read this if you don't like the gory stuff. However, while it was super weird, I did give it 4 stars. I picked this book because it genuinely just intrigued me, because how can it not? And I was left feeling a little more confused than I was going in. But I did not hate that, and I feel like that was kind of the point. They do have a sequel that just came out. It's actually sitting on my bookshelf right now too, so I'm excited to read that. I am so excited for these next 2. These 2 books are the reason I got out of my book slump, and it is Bride and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. Bride came out in 2024 and Mate just came out a few weeks ago, so I'm sure you've been seeing a lot of these. Bride follows our FMC Misery Lark, who is a vampire. She's basically spent her whole life serving her father's like political ambitions. Then she's offered a marriage alliance with an alpha werewolf named Lo. Her father basically wants them to get married to solidify peace between their species. She says no originally, but then she realizes that the werewolf Lo might have information on her missing best friend Serena. And then they basically just work together to get some answers that they both need, and then obviously that blossoms into more. And then we have Mate, and this one follows Serena, who is the best friend that I just mentioned. She is a hybrid, so she's half human, half werewolf, and this makes her a big target for literally everybody because she is the only known hybrid. The only person who can protect her is a grumpy alpha named Cohen, who also claims that Serena is his mate. The banter in this is incredible. I was giggling, kicking my feet the whole entire time. It's definitely a slow burn, but once it hits, it hits. Both of these were easy 5-star reads for me, and I am thanking both of them for getting me out of my reading slump. The next book I read in October was Soul Searching by Lila Sage. I actually did listen to this on audio, but I have a physical copy, so I'm just gonna hold it for this video. This is a paranormal romance following Brady and Collins. Collins is our female main character who is a photographer, and she also talks to ghosts. Her ability to talk to ghosts, however, is getting less and less strong, so she's actually back in her hometown in hopes to fix it. Brady is our male main character, and he is helping Collins do so. I did enjoy this book, but I gave it 3.5 stars. I didn't feel 1 ounce of connection toward either of our main characters, and the ending for it just felt a little flat and rushed for me. It was also super insta-lovey, which I'm not a big fan of either. I did really like Brady. He is like a perfect golden retriever cinnamon roll MMC, but I just didn't feel that connection toward either of them. I think if you're wanting a super like easy, quick, fluffy, rom-com-y paranormal romance for spooky or fall season, this is a great option, but if you're wanting anything deeper than that, I would skip it. The next 2 books I'm going to talk about are actually novellas, and it is Hot for Slayer by Ali Hazelwood and Falling by Christina Lauren. These are 2 novellas in the Scared Sexy collection, which consists of 6 novellas by 6 different authors. Hot for Slayer follows a vampire, Ethel, and then a vampire slayer named Laszlo. Laszlo bonks his head and loses his memory and totally forgets that he's a vampire slayer and that Ethel is a vampire, and Ethel actually ends up taking care of him. Ali Hazelwood writes men who yearn like no other, so obviously I enjoyed it. It was super fun, but it's a novella, so I gave it 4 stars. Falling by Christina Lauren, I originally gave 3 stars, but I am bonking it down to 2 because I don't even remember what this was about. I literally am gonna read you the blurb from my computer because I don't even want to think too hard about it. This is a short, spicy Halloween novella about a woman who meets a cursed immortal at a party. It's quick, flirty, and gives off total supernatural one-night-only vibes. Perfect if you want something you can read in one sitting. It was fine, but I think it ended right when I was getting invested, so like that really sucked, and honestly I don't remember a whole lot about it, so That's all I'm gonna say about that one. The last book I read during my 7 spooky reads in 7 days was My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. Follows our female main character Cassie, who is a broke artist who actually got kicked out of her apartment. She ends up moving in with Frederick, who is our MMC, who is also a vampire. Since Frederick is a vampire, he's really struggling with fitting in right now socially, so when Cassie finds out the truth, he actually asks her for help. It's a really wholesome, cute, cozy romance. It's perfect for spooky season as well. I did give it 2.5 stars though. I didn't not like it. I read it in one sitting too. It's really short, so I read this in like 2.5 hours, but I just think there are a lot of other books that I would recommend before this one. Next we have Bad for Business by Kat Singleton. This book follows Camille and Riker. Riker really wants to get a spot on the board at his dad's company, but he does not have a great public image, so Camille, who works at her father's PR company, is actually hired to help fix his image. Their fathers are kind of the ones that set this up, so neither of them know who they'll be working with, and when they finally see each other, they are both in shock because they actually know each other because they hooked up a few months prior. Said hookup was very great for both of them, but they both think that the other actually left them the next morning, but it was just a miscommunication. As they're working together, they obviously clash a little bit because Riker doesn't want a babysitter, but Camille is super focused and determined to fix his image so she can look better to her father. The tropes in this are grumpy sunshine, workplace romance, and a little bit of enemies to lovers. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it and I did read it in one sitting, so it was a pretty quick, easy read, but I do feel like for some reason the pacing was a little bit off for me and it did feel a little bit repetitive. I loved Riker. I thought he was a cutie pie, but Camille did annoy me a little bit throughout the book. This also takes place in the Hamptons, so this would be a great summer read. Then I read The Oath We Give by Monty J. This is the 5th and final book in the Hollow Boys series. I read the first 4 books back in April and I have been putting this off for so long because I don't want the series to end. This one follows Silas and Coraline. Is a survivor of a kidnapping as well as Stockholm Syndrome. And then Silas and his friends are actually the people who saved her. A few years pass, but of course Coraline is still kind of working through that and healing from her traumatic experience. And then Silas becomes her safe space. They're not like close by any means, but whenever Coraline is struggling, she just calls him and he calms her down. When Coraline's abductor escapes prison and Silas needs a wife in order to take over his dad's CEO spot, they decide to get married. This is obviously to ensure his spot as CEO, and it's also for Coraline and her sister's protection. This was a pretty intense read. It's really dark and emotional. Both Silas and Coraline are going through a lot and healing through a lot. It was a perfect ending to the series, and I'm so happy I finally got to see Silas get his happy ending. If you're looking for a dark romance series that has actual plot in it, this is the series for you. We have finally made it to my final read of October, which was Cash by Jessica Peterson. This is the first book in the Lucky River Ranch series, which follows 5 brothers and their love interests. And of course, it's your classic small town cowboy romance series. This is book 1 and it follows Molly and Cash. So our female main character Molly actually owns a cowboy boot company where she designs boots with her best friend. Then her dad, who she's not close with at all and doesn't have a great relationship with, actually passes away and she inherits his massive ranch. However, in his will, her dad put in there that in order for her to get the ranch, she needs to live on the property as well as run the ranch for a whole entire year. Then we have our male main character, Cash. He is a grumpy foreman who actually thought that he would inherit the ranch because that's what Molly's dad said. Since Molly inherits it instead, they obviously bump heads and he is not her biggest fan. However, when Molly does agree to live on the ranch because she really needs the money, Cash starts to see another side to her. Molly insists on helping everyone at the ranch as well, so Cash sees that she's actually very kind and helpful, works really hard, and she does have a heart for the countryside. She falls in love with the ranch and then her and Cash start to have a romantic relationship as well, so then she's stuck with a lot of different decisions that can affect her as well as the people she's grown to love on the ranch. I gave this book 4 stars. This book has my favorite love confession of all time. I was literally crying while I was driving on the freeway. So sometimes cowboy romances to me can feel very repetitive and just the same thing in different font, but I really enjoyed this one. My only note is that I don't like the nickname Honey, and he called her Honey probably like 200 times at least. But other than that, I absolutely love this book. And we are finally done. Those were the 17 books that I read in October. Overall, I had a great reading month and I'm so happy to be out of my reading slump. Let me know if you read any of these books and what you thought of them. I also just posted my TBR prompt jar picking my November TBR as well, so be sure you check that guy out. I definitely will be continuing to do these every single month, so if you did enjoy it, be sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.